Welcome to River City Media's Reckless Speculation. After one failed start and another restart, we are now here for our Friday night weekend review. We will welcome first from the left coast, the man who didn't want to show up for the Master Show, evidently, Raj Mehta. Welcome, Raj.
Thank you. That's not necessarily true. I just didn't have much to contribute. But
It never stopped you before.
Maybe that is true. Oh, you're right. Hey, wait a minute. Well done, zing.
Above Raj,
That was
the kept husband, the trophy husband, the man that had a spa day, Brendan Chain.
What's going on?
spot.
And then I guess introduce myself. I just want to know what
Way
it
to go,
takes
Chain.
to get Raj's hours where I can just show up when I want to show up. That
I know.
I need a new agent. I
Well,
need
because you don't like the
Star.
topic.
According to Randall.
Yeah, there's several
Yeah.
topics I don't like to talk about. This might
Yeah.
even be one of them that I'm on the show for right now.
yeah.
No, I
so
was-
talk about.
all of our
I was late
are kind of
for a good
blurred.
reason, but
So while Randall's joining us, I'll take the lead. So NCAA tournament. What'd you
we're
guys
live.
think about it? Takeaways, good things, bad things. Raj, we'll start with you.
overall, the championship game. Because I don't know if we discussed the championship game. Was that? Oh wait, maybe
And-
we did.
I'm back.
All right.
Sorry
Robbie
about
took over
that.
and
We're
did a
joining
great
Robbie
job.
Davis. Robbie Davis joining this River City Media. I'm sorry if I missed part of the conversation. Somebody just bounced a internet signal. Robbie Davis, welcome in.
Yeah, I was just complaining that Raj gets so much more time off than I get, and so I need my contract renegotiated. So
Yeah.
look for that in the future because
You need a better agent.
I work 4 times as hard as he does and don't see any perks.
Well,
True
thank
that.
you, Freddie Freeman.
Work
We
smarter, not
appreciate
harder.
you joining us tonight on Friday night. Let's get into this weekend review, and we'll open this up in what has dominated sports the last 3 weeks. The Kansas Jayhawks take the NCAA tournament. We'll start with Raj since he's only worked part-time today.
Mhm.
Raj, we talked about this tournament being upset field, but at the end of the day, you get Kansas versus North Carolina. What's the final feel for a little bit of a letdown?
Kinda. I mean, in one of my brackets, I picked Kansas, and not many people did, but it was like, of course, my $10 bracket. So who cares? My niece won that bracket, by the way, which is awesome. You know, I don't know. I think there was too much hype with the Coach K stuff and Duke and blah blah blah. I don't think that game was particularly entertaining. It was built up, even though it was a 4-point game. The national championship I thought was great. You know, Kansas being down 15, and there's just so many swings where it looks like Texas Tech goes up 10-2 on Duke. You know, you look like one team. You say to yourself, "There's no way that North Carolina can hang with these guys," and then North Carolina goes on like a 19-0 run or whatever, and Kansas can't buy a basket. But no, I thought that was great, man. Kansas is the best team. They're the most balanced. You know, they had the most depth. I thought it was a really great championship game personally. And again, Kansas, the most complete team, and Arizona State, Pac-12 transfer Remy Martin, who is allergic to defense, usually played great defense on Caleb Love, even though he's beat off the dribble quite a bit. But Love was 5 for 24 from the field. This is a guy that lights it up. But he also hit 3 or 4 consecutive huge threes that, you know, one could argue were the difference in the game. So I thought it was cool with St. Peter's and, you know, all that stuff and all the ones losing. But, yeah, Kansas was – I mean, they should have been a 1 in the first place. Wait, they were a 1.
Yeah.
My bad. But, you know, not many people picked them. So I thought the best team won.
Robbie Davis, what was your overall tournament feelings, and how do you feel looking back? Is it the tournament you expected?
It was kind of the tournament I expected. I thought there would be more upsets, and with that being said, a 15 seed made the Elite Eight, but I thought there'd be more upsets in the second and third rounds. Kansas played great. Carolina was a dangerous team coming in. I still can't believe Tennessee beat them by 17 points. And just
They wouldn't have beat them by 17 this past weekend.
No, not at all.
But if Baycott didn't get hurt,
it's one of those.
I mean, against
it's a tournament. I thought overall it was great entertainment. Duke Carolina being in the Final Four was great for TV draw. It was great for the week leading up to it. I got tired of it, but I certainly respect people that did not. Coach K going out, how he did. Carolina gave him a 15-point lead in the championship game. Kansas was the best team, I think. And I think the Big 12 was the best conference overall and just got overshadowed. But overall, the tournament's a tournament, man. Like, you can nitpick, you can do all these bad things. As a Vols fan, it sucks when you're supposed to advance and you don't. But it's a beautiful, beautiful tournament, and it's the wild card in sports. But just so happens this year, probably the best team won.
Brendan Jane, I know sometimes you follow this closely, but you also are a bit of a gambler. This tournament, it gave an opportunity to play fun bets. You get to play St. Peter's. You get to play some underdogs. As Robbie said, it was a tournament full of good stories, some so great. And as Raj pointed out, in the end, it was the Blue Bloods. Does a sleeper like St. Peter's make your tournament enjoy and your gambling go up? Does it change it? What does it do?
Yeah, I think definitely does, especially when your bracket's busted and you have no chance of winning anything else. So you hang on to those Cinderella stories of St. Peter's and some other teams. Then everyone bought in. Like, I had Duke going out in the second round. They played terrible at the end of the season, but as I said before, when it came tournament time, they really played well together. I was surprised. I was still kind of riding that story of Coach K's final hurrah. Could he make it to the final game? But let's be honest, even if he did, I don't think anybody was a match for Kansas this year. They played so well, and they're such a deep team. You can't play that many consecutive games, and as deep as they are, not show out like they did. So I think the best team won, like you guys said. I wasn't a Duke fan. I've never been, but I was kind of like, it would have been great to see him go out there and at least make the final game. But
who was y'all's biggest disappointment of the tournament?
Tennessee.
Kentucky.
No,
I'm gonna go with Kentucky also. Yeah, I think
Auburn
Tennessee,
didn't.
Auburn too. Like, SEC is in general was the worst performer, I thought. I think Kentucky was the biggest disappointment. And by the way, God, I'm gonna butcher his name. I've said it 1,000 times this year. The center from Kentucky, they're talking about him coming back to school.
Wow. Yeah, he
Oscar
is actually
Tshiebwe.
like Tshiebwe, yeah.
Tshiebwe,
He
yeah.
said he's pretty sure he is. I mean, he basically mentioned that, and that's him being a tweener and not necessarily been a scorer around the basket in the NBA, but he plays with effort, and nobody plays with effort in the NBA, especially in the paint. So I think he'd do great.
That's a dangerous team.
I think they are, but
that's also rumored to be the largest NIL deal in the history of college basketball. So
don't doubt it. Hey, real quick, talking about gambling, did anybody else have Kansas in 4? And Kansas won by 3, and dude stepping out of bounds on the inbound with 4 seconds left. Are you kidding me? how does that even happen? And the only way it happens is Vegas. I mean, Rob, you're the conspiracy theorist here. I've never seen that. You cannot go out of bounds on that play. And it's ridiculous. And he should have gone to the line, at least should have gotten a push. But dude could shoot free throws. So that cost me a lot of freaking money and for me. And that really pissed me off.
Totally.
No, I did not have any money on the game because I'm in Florida, and Florida somehow still does not have sports gambling online. Come on, Florida. DeSantis, let's get it done.
Everything else is legal in Florida.
That's right.
I think I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the news that broke this week that 3 of the St. Peter's players have entered the transfer portal. Is this the day and age that we live in, that someone has success and they're automatically portal bound? And are those kids from St. Peter's? Could one of those guys come to a UCLA, a Wisconsin, or a Texas, or a Tennessee, or a USC, and be a major impact player in 22, 23? Raj.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about those schools just because most of the rosters are filled out. Obviously it was much later, and their decision was based upon notoriety and spotlight, and people saw that kids from these conferences can play. Eater had that sweet porn stash and sweet hairdo, and the one kid Banks and Lee. They showed they can play, and they played hard. They got to the basket. I think they took a lot of people by surprise. And, when Shaheen Holloway left for Seton Hall, big spotlight on him and how he could coach, and just a newfound respect for, we tend to think that basketball isn't even played in these conferences, that it's a glorified D3, high school ball, and it's not. I mean, these kids can hoop. And some of these teams, they played together 3, 4, 5, it's now 5 years, and they're dangerous. So, no, I mean, getting the spotlight, they showed they can play. Are they power teams? Probably not. But, are they shown they can power 5 it? Absolutely. You put, let's say those 3 go to Kansas State and they face Kansas every year on national TV. That's spotlight. And I think they're doing the brilliant thing and take advantage. That's today.
Good point. Also, Robbie, locally, we saw a UTC team, Chattanooga team, that was put together mainly in the transfer portal that hadn't played together, that had some success, should arguably have beat Illinois. If you're a mid-major like St. Peter's, like Chattanooga, you lose your coach, you lose your players. Is it possible to be competitive over a long run at a mid-major other than Gonzaga?
Yeah, no, I think it is. And so the first question you asked, are we going to see these players transfer? Yes, because what you're seeing now is the March Madness success that coaches have always had, from getting the Sweet 16, Elite 8, and then moving. Players are doing that same thing now. They're able to do that. However, I want to caution people, the grass is not always greener, because the St. Peter's kids, they had a great ride at St. Peter's, but where you transfer, you may not ever see the court. So be careful what you wish for, because
but they may see an NIL now.
Yes, you may, but and this is all we're not giving financial advice, but is it better to be a star where you live versus try to get some minor deal where you may go? The other question is, I think Chattanooga can still build solid teams, because you're going to recruit these, 2 stars. It can develop talent and cohesiveness and build a team. And what you got to do is you got to win. You got to play together. And there is something to be said about knowing where the players are going to be, because coaches are going to be there until there is a run. And in college basketball, you don't get eliminated in your conference tournament and then get promotions. you got to make a run in the tournament. So there's always going to be that run in the tournament. The way the tournament's set out, it's made for smaller schools to make a run and have their day, and then everyone move on and rinse and repeat.
They're a destination program. We talked about this before. A huge stepping stone program. They hire amazing coaches that get hired elsewhere that, you know, when they don't cheat, like Will Wade, they do phenomenally.
Did you see you said that tweet I sent you guys? LSU has 0 scholarship players still left. That's amazing.
That's insane.
Yes,
It is amazing. They're going to get a lot of people in the transfer. Obviously, supposedly a lot of the Murray State kids are going down there following their coach. But, yeah, I've never seen all 11 scholarship players.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's today, but good Lord, that is unprecedented to say the least.
A good point that Raj makes is there's a chance that some of the St. Peter's players follow their coach to Seton Hall. Brandon.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is a whole new world we're dealing with now with this transfer portal. And you get a little bit of light shine on your name, like a run, like some of the players and personalities with St. Peter's. And then you want to take that chance and enter in the transfer portal like, hey, I am a star. I can play at some of these bigger schools. So let's not forget, all these kids wanted to go to these bigger schools in the beginning. You know, they wish they could be there. And they just didn't get enough recruitment or you know, whatever. So, yeah, it can happen. And this is a whole nother game now. And you have to recruit in the transfer portal. You're going to start seeing these schools that make runs like St. Peter's that a Kentucky or a UCLA or a Tennessee can pick up to fill that 6th, 7th deep kind of bench spot and become a Kansas almost, you know, and have this depth that you strive for. So yeah, it's a huge deal. And it's not by far over, and there's going to be a lot of back and forth.
And Rob, I know you were talking about personal playing, but you know, a lot of these kids, they're never going to get close to the Elite Eight again. So if they peak, why not go to a big school? Maybe be a 6-man, sit on the bench, get an NIL deal. Of course, that's not how a basketball player looks at it. They want to be competitive, but man, those kids peaked for sure. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
Having been around high school sports for 30 plus years, I can tell you the one thing that as fans is a little bit of a misnomer is those kids at St. Pete may have not been the elite of the elite, but they did throughout. It's almost strange. Some of the best high school players I've ever seen ended up at mid-majors or smaller schools. I had this conversation just recently with a kid who chose to sign at a 1AA school over a Division I. And his philosophy to me was, yeah, I could go to, let's say, Western Kentucky, and I could play against Ohio State, and I could play against North Carolina, and I could be a sacrificial lamb and get beat 42-0 in those places. Or I could go play at elite 1AA school and be in Frisco, Texas, playing for national championships, playing for meaningful games. And it wasn't his dream to play at Vandy, Tennessee, or Memphis, but, you know, maybe he ran a 4.7 40 and not a 4.5. These have always been the best athletes and the best players in their school. So they're elite athletes, just not – I like to say right now there's over 350 pitchers in the major leagues. They are probably 50 point guards in the NBA, 60 point guards.
Well,
it's in a selective sport. Robbie, go ahead.
Right. And like, I get that. Like, and I don't know the kid's name. They went to Jacksonville State or Jacksonville, wherever Dion coaches, who's the number 1 prospect or whatever.
Travis Hunter.
Like, but if like, it's your right to choose to go to a lesser school if you have more talent, but that's going to ding on you in the next level. Like, why do you not want to compete against the best? Like, what's not necessarily off on you, but there's something that says you don't want to compete. You want the easy road to get there. Whether it's right or wrong, that's the narrative that's going to be out there. And so with players that go to lesser schools, when they can go to higher competition, that's always going to be out there, whether it's right or wrong.
It is,
Totally
I think,
agree.
at the very elite top. I think there's a mixture of. I think there are a lot of kids that could play at Chattanooga that could also play at Memphis, where there's a third in football, not basketball. Basketball is a completely different sport.
Malachi Smith could have played in but I understand your point.
Malachi Smith is a transfer in himself, and not a lot of people are. He left Wright State because he couldn't find playing time. And Wright State has an all-conference point guard. So it's proof Wright State had 2 future player of the years in 1 recruiting class. So I think it's all relevant. But Robbie, finish us up on this topic, and then we'll go on to the women's tournament. Great tournament. What's your final thoughts of it, though, overall? Best tournament you saw, worst tournament you saw, in between?
Not the best, not the worst. I thought it was entertaining, as it always is, and I think Duke and Coach K retirement had a lot to do with it. Poor Villanova, the kid that tore his Achilles, because I thought they had a chance to beat Kansas. So that kind of limped in. Kansas ended up having a really easy road to winning that tournament. They were the number 1 seed, and rightfully so, but they got some breaks along the road, but they're a worthy champion. Besides can we talk about the NCAA violations, or are we saving that?
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So this is why you do not ever cooperate with the NCAA. Both UNC and Kansas, they're both alleged. And I say alleged very loosely, almost convicted, allegedly cheaters. And they both said, NCAA, mind your own business. We're doing our own thing. Both in the championship game. And then, you know what? Mark Emmert smiled and handed that trophy to Bill Self, who is alleged to do a lot of bad things. But you know what? College athletics, amateur hour, right?
And he butchered a name, too.
Yeah. And the other thing is, let me pull this down. Well, we lost Mr. Chang for a second.
I'm sure Raj has a lot to say about that issue as well.
Yeah, Raj, go ahead. Did you hear what Robbie was saying about
because USC and Reggie Bush lost a Heisman paying rent, and now what?
Yeah, Will Wade can keep his job and Sean Miller kept his job for 2 years despite being on tape. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm speechless when it comes to this. It's the typical NCAA, the unevenness of the application of their rules and guidelines and scrutiny. The big ding on USC was, quote, a lack of institutional control. 2 years later, Oregon and Uncle Phil, suddenly that wasn't it, despite both programs, basketball and football. Like I said, LSU, sometimes the NCAA wants to make an example out of people, and they do that out of programs. But Robbie's right. Until you realize it's a complete joke in the organization, you may be surprised, but nothing surprises me anymore with those morons. It's a horribly political, financially motivated governing body that should be disbanded. And I'm rarely speechless, but they are so stupid. It's like college referees. I can't. I'm done.
They on Monday night, they just watched money come down like confetti on 2 teams that both are like breaking rules, and they caught them dead on. And no big deal. Celebrate it and yeah, let's move on to the next. Like it's the hypocrisy is mind blowing, but also we've come so used to it that it's just like, okay, yeah, of course they'll do that.
Was it
All right,
Jameis Winston who got in trouble quickly and basically they said, who was it that, oh yeah, you're in trouble, but you can start your suspension the start of next year. It wasn't maybe an Ohio State quarterback. I can't remember who that was. But
Winston was the crab legs.
I remember that. But somebody was allowed to play in the bowl game, and then they started, like, they got in trouble at the start of next year because bowl games make money.
We're going to have to wrap it up. We're over time. We got 2 more subjects on basketball we got to get through in this review. One is I want to talk about quickly the ladies tournament. By the way, Brandon, when you get off camera, you put the RiverCity-Media stripe right across our face.
Yeah,
we
my bad.
I want to talk about the women's tournament real fast. And I want to talk specifically about how this feels. South Carolina has won 2 now. Pretty handily dominated this tournament. NC State has made a charge with Coach Wes Moore, but can't seem to break through to that win column. UConn gets back to the finals and loses to South Carolina. But I feel like this is similar to when we saw the changing of the guard from Tennessee to UConn, and then UConn wins a bunch of titles. South Carolina already won 2 now, number 1 class in America coming in. Is South Carolina becoming the preeminent women's program at this point, Robbie?
I don't know if you passed the torch yet, but I think what you're seeing in women's basketball is what you're seeing in sports in general, especially at collegiate level. The Southeast brings a lot of talent, and if they can keep them home, then their college sports are going to be great in the South. It's every sport really mirrors that, and so I think that's what. If you can keep people, I mean, good God, why would you want to go to Storrs, Connecticut, to play a winter sport when you can stay in the South and play the same sport with more exposure? I don't know why you would.
Raj, Dawn Staley is really putting her stamp on women's college basketball. And I don't know that this is a name that instantly jumped out to everybody when she got this job. Is women's college basketball, is it in a growth period or is it in a decline period?
I mean, I certainly think it's a growth period. Not only women have always played sports. There's certainly more publicity, exposure, and it's kind of like those, St. Peter. Sometimes it's a matter of visibility and exposure until some people can get their respect. It's certainly a growing sport, and everyone loves a dynasty. And I could argue that, no sport has seen more dynasties consistently than women's college basketball.
Absolutely.
Tennessee, then UConn, and I think, now South Carolina. Gina Auriemma's 68, or Auriemma. Dawn Staley's 51. She played in college, 3 Final Fours, WNBA. She's been there before. She's been at South Carolina since 2008. And so she built it up. And I agree with Rob. The Southeast has a ton of athletic and academic competitiveness and talent base. And Rebecca Lobo wouldn't do too well against Aaliyah Boston in today's age, in my opinion. And Storrs, Connecticut would not. It used to be that if you wanted to get drafted in the top 5 in the WNBA, you went to UConn, and that's just not the case anymore. So I actually think you can't say the torch was passed. They haven't won one before this since 2017. I say since, but I think it's trending that way, and it's because of Dawn Staley.
Shane, before we get off this subject, and I think Raj makes an excellent point, at one point, I think there was a period where Tennessee or UConn won 18 of 21 women's titles. We saw Baylor break through a couple of years ago. Now we're seeing South Carolina break through. Stanford was always competitive. Notre Dame was competitive. But is women's basketball now growing, even though they're dominant at the top? Are they? It feels like there's more. I want to say this right. It feels like that the quality of team is much better than it was 20 years ago.
Oh,
Yeah, I agree with that statement for sure. The thing about UConn still, and like I don't necessarily agree with passing the torch yet. I mean, they still have that big brand name recognition, which is important. I mean, you have these little girls watching basketball, growing up, wanting to come to that school. That's like, for men, Duke or North Carolina, or some of these bigger schools, Kentucky, whatever. So I don't think I think they're getting pressure for sure, and I think there's a lot more teams that are competitive because, like you said, it's such a growing sport right now, and there's a lot more recognition on other teams, and teams are starting to slide in there. Recruiting, everything's getting better in the South, especially
Hey, real quick.
Yep.
Go ahead, Roger.
No, I was just going to say in terms of exposure, last year was the first year. Why are you flipping me off? Last year was the first year that every women's NCAA tournament game was televised on one network or another. And there's a reason for that. The Stanford-Arizona title game drew 4 million viewers, which was like the most in 10 years. There was a regular season game between Tennessee and South Carolina that had almost like a million viewers, and it was on, I can't remember, maybe ABC, but that's the most ever for a regular season women's college basketball game. It's about exposure and publicity, and that's, look at golf and the Tiger effect. It's a slippery slope in terms of this conversation. We can just keep going and snowballing. But, there's no doubt that, in every sport, the athlete is evolving athletically, if you will, and it's not well stated, but women's basketball is no different than any other.
we live in
play. It's not about girls. It's these basketball players can play.
Right. And we live in a completely different world nowadays where there's social media and exposure is, so prevalent. So it can happen overnight. And these big
All right,
TV
guys,
companies are jumping
we're
on
running short on time. I want to hit one more subject in basketball and wrap up the show. We've had a plethora of players making their decision on the NBA. We are, of course, local to Knoxville, local to the Chattanooga area. We had a very large decision on our college team in Knoxville, which Robbie and I both attended school at UT. And that was Kennedy Chandler on Wednesday made what I thought was a very wise decision and declared for the NBA draft. I've read mock drafts that have him anywhere from 16 to 23. I've also read that he's kind of a mover now that they know he's intended to go. Kennedy's a kid from Memphis, going to address a lot of family needs. He's also a kid that's a production of a very good AAU program that he's had teammates like Jabari Smith and Pablo Banchero. I think maybe the best team that we've never heard of was that AAU team 2 years ago. Robbie Davis, we'll start with you. We'll come back to you. Go around the horn. What is Kennedy Chandler's NBA future? And obviously, I think we've discussed it enough. Right decision by Kennedy Chandler, don't you think?
Yes. Selfishly, obviously, I want him to come back. But you can't tell a kid or anyone to turn away that money. I think he's probably going to go a little earlier than that 17 to 19 range because he can get to the basket, and he probably has the quickest dribble to layup moves that I've seen since Allen Iverson. And not saying he is AI quality, but that's a good move that he has, and he can control the floor. Yeah, and I mean, as far as what he leaves Knoxville, man, and Randall, you and I are in complete agreement of this. Man, he won the SEC tournament championship, and
Thank you, Jesus.
that will hang in the banners, and we will keep trying for Final Fours. But that's a big deal for UT basketball fans.
Suck it, Kentucky.
First one
I
in my
agree.
lifetime. Maybe is that the second one in your lifetime, or is the first one in your lifetime?
It is the second. I was 12 last time we won one.
Dude,
I was
1958 was a long
God,
time
you're
ago.
so old.
Good point. I want to come back to you, but I want to
Back
go
to the
around and get
future.
Raj and Brendan real fast. I want to come back to you for final words on Kennedy Chandler's role at Tennessee and what it meant to the program. Raj, you've been very vocal in the past about that size of guard in this era of basketball. There's still a role, but he must be aggressive on the court. And like Robbie talked about IA, he's going to take some punishment at 6 foot 171.
Yeah, but I think he's taken the most that you're going to in his career. Like I said, the NBA is a very different game today. First steps are everything. Look at Chris Paul still being amazingly relevant. Ncaa, that dude has one of the quickest first steps. He is not only super fast in how he plays the game, but when you're that fast, it's an issue of game management. And he has skills that, in my opinion, you can't teach. And he plays the game much older than an 18-year-old. He's got innate court vision. The way he can slow things down. Most kids, even in the NBA, they go 0 to 100. Not to quote Drake, but
I think you just quoted Drake.
Don't do that.
I know. I was unintentional. Hey, Drake quoted me. No, I mean, it's a different game today, and we saw the effect of a quick, speedy point guard. In this tournament, whether it be Miami, Chandler, et cetera, Ty Washington. But yeah, in the NBA, he's deadly because, again, I don't see a lot of defense. And most of the time, dudes are going to get whiplash from watching him blow by him. I think there was no question he was going to leave. You're absolutely right about that AAU team. Great point. Coming in, he was a first-round draft pick. Many people said a lottery pick. The one and done was kind of a foregone conclusion in many people's eyes, which made him that much more impressive because point guard is the hardest position for a young one and done person to play. He came into a team that most of the kids had played together. It's super underestimated his ability to manage the game and blend in with teammates and learn the offense. Really a sensational player all the way around, but mentally. And again, you can't teach that. So I definitely have him as a lottery pick. I'd say top 10, but the NBA is stupid. So we'll see.
Brandon, just a quick question for you. Is a player like Kennedy Chandler at a school like Tennessee that's so basketball starved, is his legacy bigger because he went to Tennessee than it would have been at Kentucky or at someplace that is UCLA, USC? Is it like a football player going to Pitt instead of Penn State?
That's a good question, but I tend to think stars are going to shine. I don't think it mattered where he went. I think he would have been very relevant in college basketball. I know Robbie made the AI comparison, but he really reminds me a lot. I know he's a little smaller, but of LaMelo Ball with the Hornets. I think he's got a very similar game style. Quick to the basket, can control the game, can hit the three, can drive on you. He's definitely a plug and play lottery pick, in my opinion. I think he can start when he gets to the NBA. But no, I don't think it. Tennessee had amazing season this year, and he was part of that reason. And I think that shined a little bit more on him. But can you imagine if he was out of St. Peter's or something that made a run deep in the tournament? I mean, this guy would have shined through and through. So you can't have talent. Stars are going to shine.
The Barnes effect, man. They get stars. They play in front of 19,000. You guys talk about it all the time. It's the SEC. It's a different era in Tennessee basketball. They're on the national scene. They're going to get top 5 kids. It's
Robbie, with that being
excellent
said,
program.
What is Kennedy Chandler's last words? What is Kennedy Chandler's legacy at the University of Tennessee?
He's the best player I've seen at Tennessee. And that includes, I remember as a kid seeing Allen Houston. I've seen Stokes. I've seen Grant Williams. I've seen Scotty Hobson. He was the best player that I've seen there. And at that position for that coach, he was the most talented I've seen.
I think I would agree with you. I might put Chris Lofton on level with him.
No, Chris Lofton's a shooter. He's not the best basketball player.
I would agree with both of you.
Yeah.
And then I'm still a believer that Bernard King's the best basketball player ever to walk through the University of Tennessee.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
But you were probably about 10
alive.
years from being an embryo at that.
Yeah, I wasn't alive for that. I don't disagree. I just wasn't alive.
Different athlete today, though. I agree with Rob. But yeah, Bernard King was phenomenal.
All right.
Jesus.
For Brendan Chain, Raj Mehta, Robbie Davis, you've watched the Week in Review with Reckless Speculation. Join us next week. Have a good weekend.